It's Bigfoot Collectors Club with Bryce and Michael.
Yeah. There it is.
I know a ghost story or two.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
How many more episodes are we going to enjoy that music that much the whole way?
Never gets old for me.
I think
It's
Bryce is enjoying it more and more every week as he
Yeah.
slowly turns into an old-timey prospector.
I know. I wish I could
the
tattoo an
course of
audio
every
file
episode.
onto my body. An old-timey prospector.
I really feel like every time I now see you, you've gone just like a little bit more mountain.
Oh, I love Alaskan Bush People and that show. And I try to get my kids to watch it. My daughter's like, "This is shit. What are we doing? I want to watch one of my shows." I'm like, "You watch this. You may never know.
What's the
we
last?
might be up there."
She has a potty mouth, by the way.
I know.
This is shit.
Real quick, welcome back to episode 42 of Bigfoot Collectors Club, the show where we talk to amazing guests about their personal paranormal history and share stories of high strangeness. I'm your host, Michael McMillan. With me is your other host,
Brass Johnson,
and our trusty producer,
Riley Bray.
And today we have our very first official returning guest to the main show.
Yes, love her so
and
much.
with good reason, boy, does she got a tale of high strangeness for you today. She is a comedian. She's a writer. She's an author. She's an actor. Ladies and gentlemen.
Like that was the worst one.
Almost got a spit take. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the show, godmother of the podcast, as christened by Riley, Jen Kirkman.
Yeah, woo!
This is an honor. And I was really digging the theme song. You know, I listen to the show more so now than I used to, and we'll talk about it during the episode,
Yeah.
is why I can now listen to it.
Oh, right, because you were too scared to listen to it
I was
before.
too scared to listen to
wow.
most of it unless it was about something more like, I don't know, something like Bigfoot stuff doesn't scare me and some
Yeah.
UFO stuff doesn't, but I couldn't listen to a lot of the ghost stuff. But anyway, I was really listening to the theme song, and I enjoyed that you listened to it like before the episode, because I don't listen to my own theme song
Right.
before I get into my episodes because I don't need to, because I'm sitting by myself with my weird podcast.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
You're
I
a
wanna try that.
podcaster. Jen has a podcast.
That's right.
called
It's
I
called-
Seem
And it's
Fun.
so great.
It's called I Seem Fun, the Diary of Jen Kirkman podcast.
And you
I
do it
just-
all on your own.
I just sit there with a microphone.
It's amazing.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I was just enjoying this song. It gives me that like feeling I get when I listen to Howard Stern and I catch it from the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And I hear his theme song, and it's a
that's
cool
awesome.
song.
Yeah, quick shout out to Suneaters for our theme song, Come Alone. It's going to be on their album that's coming out, I believe, at Christmas. So we'll obviously keep you posted. But I love listening to not just this theme song, but like I'm one of those people that like certain TV shows. I don't want to fast forward through the intro. Like Game of Thrones, I watch it every time I go through it. A lot of people skip ahead.
No, you have to.
Yeah.
But Game of Thrones is also good because they show you like locations that are going to be taking place in,
Right.
on the map. Those change every time depending on
Totally in the characters.
Yeah. Well, no, just to look. Do you watch Game?
Yes,
of
I've watched
No,
Game
you
of
don't.
Thrones.
You're just making.
You're just
things
watching
The
Alaskan
Girl
Bush.
with the Dragons.
You're just
Come on.
watching Alaskan Bush people.
What?
And
There's no
naked and
characters on
afraid.
the intro. There's the character names. How about that?
No.
LaGuardia and
LaGuardia.
forget it. You should try Alaskan Bush People.
2 minutes in,
It's
we're
really
already
good.
busting Bryce's chops.
Yeah, but I can't. I've got. The to me the theme is always the tone setter. Like, remember Mad Men? Remember Mad Men? And you'd watch the Mad Men intro.
That's a great intro.
that great drum beat
That's right.
behind it, and like then you were like that, and then I was like in it. I
Yeah.
loved it. I love.
I really loved the Narcos one. That smooth
never
Spanish
watched it.
singing.
I haven't seen.
oh,
I've
I
never
watched
seen
that.
Narcos.
I'm with
I
you
hear
on
it's
that.
great.
Yeah, that
That's
song
great.
is amazing.
How about the greatest theme song of all time? Show me that
Believe
smile
it or not,
again.
I'm
No.
walking.
Wow,
Don't
it's
waste
kind of the same.
another minute
Thought
on
I
your
could
crying.
feel so free.
Whether we're near the
Flying
end,
away.
the best is really
away
to
at a friend.
begin.
You just struck gold.
Yeah.
That's a great mashup.
Totally.
They really go together.
Riley, get on it.
Guys, how are
We
you
got
gonna?
Wow, dude.
You're gonna make money off that,
That's pretty cool.
or you're gonna
That's
get
pretty
sued by the
cool.
Robin Thicke estate.
Guys, shut
Alan-
down this podcast.
Right.
We are now, Bryce and Michael are recording theme song mashups.
What was your song?
It was from Growing Pains.
Growing Pains.
I mean,
okay.
Alan Thicke, not Robin Thicke.
Yeah,
sorry.
Right,
same
right.
diff.
Right. Greatest
You know
American
that
hero.
he just cloned himself, right?
It's not really his
Raised
son.
His own clone. Yeah.
Yeah. His son is Robin Thicke,
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alan
okay.
Thicke. God. What a
Singer of rapey anthems.
Yeah.
Hi, Robin Thicke here, singer of Rape Anthems. Let's go to my rape catalog. Sorry.
That was going to be our first feud.
Oh, yeah.
With who? Him?
Robin Thicke
We
versus
just started it right
Bigfoot
now.
Collectors Club.
That's fine.
You used to collect TV guides. What was your favorite? You're a big TV watcher growing up. What was your favorite?
I loved the Moonlighting theme song.
Oh,
which
the
is simply
best.
just a song by Al Jarreau. I think that already existed, right?
Yeah.
No, it didn't. Moonlighting Strangers.
Yeah.
Was that already a song?
Maybe.
I love that show too.
And Welcome Back, Cotter.
It was great.
Welcome Back by I
Welcome
have the
back,
song.
welcome back.
Welcome back.
Forget the guy's name.
Hill Street Blues. That theme music was so
I think
great.
I liked the theme music. Didn't watch.
I don't
want to
watch the show, but I would hear my parents watching it, and I would like stick my head out the door of my bedroom and listen to it because
Totally.
oh,
that is relaxing.
It was
pretty
so
good,
relaxing.
yeah.
And the intro's great too because it's just a police siren going through the streets.
Yeah.
Of course,
so
the
nice.
Taxi theme song, which I know
never
is
watched
depressing.
Taxi.
I mean,
Great pilot.
the fact that I've sat through so much, I can't believe you don't like Star Wars, and I'm gonna hold my tongue about Taxi and you because I know how frustrating it is.
You know
when
what's-
someone doesn't like the best thing on earth that they should
Of
like.
course, I bet I would love Taxi. It was weird because I think I for some I didn't watch it when it was on as a kid. It might have still been on. I assume it was, but I was at the mercy of whatever they used to rerun on my local TV affiliate
I hear
during the days. There was a show called AM Live in Kansas City, and it was hosted by this nice lady who would just talk, have local celebrity guests come, and then they would show Three's Company and Family Ties and Growing Pains reruns, even though Growing Pains was still on the air.
Okay. So
And
this
Who's
is a
the
subtle
Boss?
story called Jen's Old. He thinks.
No.
He thinks I watched Taxi in first run.
No. But that's what I'm saying. I can't remember when that ran, but we didn't get it on reruns in
Maybe it was
Kansas
too hard
City.
for Kansas City. Like they showed it in Boston. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It might have been like too much.
We
Too
didn't
hard
get it
for
in
Casey.
reruns. I would have watched it because I watched everything
And you would
that
have
was
wanted
on
to
TV.
move to New York so badly.
I did, but that was because of Spider-Man.
Oh,
Because
sure.
of Spider-Man
I don't
comic
blame you for
books.
that.
The Marvel universe made me want to move
You know,
to New
even
York.
though I'm not a comic book person, I do love Spider-Man. And when I'm in New York,
What's not to love?
nothing. And when I'm in New York and I think about how Trump and the Trump Tower, it's literally a comic book.
Totally.
The
Yes.
evil
Yeah,
and
you're
all
right.
this stuff. And when you think about the State Department of New York, that it's going to get him on all these finance charges, like they're the superhero. And for some reason this year, I was living in New York half the year for a job. I was like, I hope it all goes down, whatever's going to go down while I'm here, because I feel like I'm in a giant comic book.
What
That I
to back
loved
this up is perfect. So I've been playing the new Spider-Man game for PS4,
Oh, wow.
which is amazing. If you like video games, even if you're not a comic book nerd, go get that game. But you're swinging around in a really well done model of New York. And I swung over to
That's really awesome. Swung over to 23rd.
I swung over
Western.
to Columbus Circle to check out what they did with the Trump building and Trump Towers. Instead of Trump Towers, it's Fisk Towers.
Fisk.
Wilson Fisk, who's the kingpin, who's one of the crime
Oh,
bosses that
that's
fights
awesome.
Spider-Man and Daredevil. Vincent D'Onofrio plays him on the Daredevil TV show. So it's just like a
Is it a
real
slight
subtle burn and really well done by the game designer. So good job.
Hell yeah. That's awesome, man.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
great. Well, that's been another episode of Bigfoot Collectors Club, your favorite paranormal podcast.
Yeah, we got a few things in there.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Do you want to? I think Riley. I think it's time for some.
Ding, 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 ding.
BCC news. So I.
So great.
We're working out some bits here.
It's funny.
So just before we rolled, this isn't necessarily newsy, but it was on TV this week. What's his name? Dean Phillips, who's running for the 3rd Congressional District in, I believe, Minnesota. Had this great political ad that was out this week, which I know we just watched here. That actually Riley sent over to us, featuring Bigfoot going to looking for their missing congressman Eric Paulson that Dean Phillips is running against. And it's a great, really funny, really well acted spot. So I just wanted to let everybody know that they could check out some Bigfoot currently on their television.
Yeah, Bigfoot finding his way in a lot of the political spectrum these days, huh?
Yeah, with that other dude who's running for Congress who was into Bigfoot erotica.
Bigfoot politics, hand in hand.
That's right.
Yeah, but well done to tip of the hat to the Dean Phillips campaign. Also, a reminder, today, as we record this, Tuesday, September 25th, is National Register to Vote Day.
Oh, wow.
So you'll be hearing this the day after that. Make sure to get your friends out, people that you know who haven't voted, people such as my barber, who's from Boston, Jen. I'm going to get him registered, and we're going to go.
Good.
Yeah.
Go vote.
We're
Just
not
go
telling
vote.
you how to vote. We're just telling you to go vote.
I'm telling you how to vote.
Go for it.
Because go vote for what? Some fourth party person or some Trumpette? Go blue no matter who. Our democracy is at stake.
Let's do
Not
it.
political. We've just been taken over by Russia. No big deal.
No big deal.
Go vote. You know, I watched.
All opinions are my own.
I watched Fahrenheit 11/9 over the weekend.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, there were there were good moments in it. You know, some of the Michael Moore stunt stuff feels pretty dated. But there was one really good takeaway from that film, which is there are like 100 million people in this country who do not vote. And the real problem are people who just don't participate in democracy. And that is the biggest threat to this democracy is the body politic. You got to get out and vote. So go for it. Go get registered and vote this November.
And if you can vote by mail, that's what I do. It's really
do it.
easy.
It's so easy.
Some states have it.
I think
wanna
voting
vote by
should be like a
text.
national holiday. Everybody should get off work and, have the ability to go out and vote.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many people who are disenfranchised just because, they work 2 jobs. They don't, they can't get away from their, even though they're, supposed to be allowed to. But it's just like, if we have a national freaking hot dog day, can we at least have...
Do we get off work for National Hot
I
Dog
think
Day?
in some places they do.
Maybe just combine the two,
I think
There
we
you
should get
go.
the day
Yeah.
off vote,
Yeah.
and then everyone goes to a pub. It has to be an old-timey, turn of the century, like 1700s pub, and drink out of beer steins and watch the returns.
That sounds
that
great.
sounds so
well, you
nice.
know why they don't make it a national holiday, because they know if everyone voted the way it would go.
Yeah, which
'Cause
is
most of us. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
I have an update on the Sunspot Observatory story. This comes from Wired Magazine, or I guess Wired.com. I just dated myself. If the TV theme songs didn't do it already. This is from Wired, the new issue of Wired Magazine. So official. Okay, here we go. Oh boy. Now, okay, so this is the story about the Sunspot Observatory in New Mexico. We talked about it last week's episode.
Feds came in out of nowhere, closed the whole
shut
place
down
down.
the town. People thought, oh my God, they've discovered the solar flare that's going to wipe out the grid. They've found the missing planet X that's going to come by, and the Anunnaki are going to invade us.
Right.
Turns out,
which still could happen.
More details are emerging about what's really going on.
I feel
According
like you're
to
going to
Wired,
disappoint me here.
an affidavit unsealed last week revealed that the FBI was investigating child pornography.
What?
Linked to an IP address in Sunspot, and a suspect seemed threatening. The investigation is ongoing, and no one has been charged. That information is disturbing, along with the secrecy surrounding the evacuation.
That sucks so bad.
Yeah, it's a bummer. You're hoping for something cool, and it turns out to be the worst thing ever.
Mixing child porn with aliens. Never good.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
that's a
was excited.
total
I was there
bummer.
with you.
Dude.
Real bummer.
So much for the alien apocalypse.
You know what?
I know.
Disinformation. You know what I mean? Who knows? I don't like that at all.
That's not. Well, let's not ignore.
You're right. You're right.
The real dangers of jumping on Bryce.
This is not a conspiracy podcast.
It's not.
Sorry.
It's a real thing. And that's a big deal.
All right. If it's in Wired Magazine, then it must be true.
I do have a fun. A friend last night. I was at dinner, and a friend told me a really cool UFO story. And then we're gonna get to Jen's big story.
Yeah,
that
because she's here with a purpose.
Yeah, this one is great.
Totally.
But real quick, real cool anecdote. So this is a good friend of mine. I've known for years. She was telling me that when they were kids, they lived in Laguna Hills, and that her younger brother had an encounter one night with men, like entities in dark robes with silver buttons, came into his bedroom.
Oh my gosh. And
floated around. He said he was so scared and couldn't move, and the thing that he remembers hearing the most are were their robes dragging across the carpet. Ooh. And he thinks that they floated around, and it sounded to me like the little blue doctors from Communion that were like the little pale purpley blue guys that wore the robes. But get a load of this. So that happened, and within a couple days, I think if not the next day, their mother got a call from their neighbor. So basically their house sat on a hill. The back of the house overlooked a ravine that just went down into a dry gulch that had a bunch of brush in it. Then there was like an acre or so, and then the house behind them. So their neighbor told them that night they saw a craft land and parked with lights in the gulch behind their house.
What?
And I guess the neighbors...
How long ago was this, Mike?
This would have been her brother was 9 at the time, and he's my age. So this was like late 80s, probably. Late 80s, maybe early 90s.
Gotcha.
But the neighbor's husband is a cinematographer, and he ran to get his camera to film this thing, and by the time he got back, it was gone.
Wow.
Isn't that insane?
That's really insane.
So you have a kid reporting entities coming into his room at night, and then he told his mom, and she said that, and I'm going to try to get more information on this story to share, because it's kind of reminded me of Gabrielle's story last week. Like, now, the great thing about doing this podcast is more and more people are just coming up to me and sharing, their stories of weird stuff that's happened to them.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads me to what we're going to talk about with Jen, but the fact that he had that encounter, and that's one thing, but that you have two adult witnesses.
Outside witnesses.
Outside who did not even know about the kids' experience.
Yep.
Saying that they saw a UFO in their backyard.
That is crazy.
How insane is that?
Does he recall boarding the craft of anything like that?
According to him,
they just came in and came out.
Yeah, according to him, they came in and came out.
Right.
They didn't. They he said that they didn't bother him. It's like they came in and looked around the room, and inspected the room, and then he was left. I mean, there could have been some missing time. I mean,
there's probably some missing time in there. He should get regressed.
I think he needs to check it out. But how crazy?
Because in a lot of these cases, I mean, people will remember bits and pieces of the information, and sometimes when they go through what's called like a regressed hypnotherapy session. Which a licensed regressionist will take them back through the encounter and in a relaxed state, and they're able to recall and recount in vivid more details than they ever thought that they could consciously be aware of. And usually if somebody lands their craft and comes into your bedroom, they're taking your ass.
That story is like, I'm like, well, then he was dreaming. It's like too crazy for me.
I know.
And if it happened to me, I would just spontaneously die.
What happened to her?
Oh no,
she's not breathing.
We pushed it too far.
It wouldn't even be a heart attack. It would just be I'd just explode.
Right.
Spontaneously combust. Do you ever do stories about spontaneous combustion?
No, but we should.
I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah. It terrified me as a kid.
I'm still terrified. And I kind of hope it's how I go.
How do you feel? Real phenomena or dropped cigarette?
No, damn, don't put any logic in my head.
I don't think I shouldn't answer your
I don't know if it's
question
ever. I have to look into it more to see if there's even any like real stories of it.
Well, I would supply that there's definitely some real phenomena there. I mean, there's multiple cases throughout history which is just unexplainable. And at the temperature these mostly people burn are at an insane amount of degree. I mean, it's like, they combust. They just,
Whoa.
So cool.
Wouldn't it be so fucked up if one of us just burst into flames? Or
Oh, God, I would love it.
Wow. That's crazy.
Oh, boy. So,
We'll look into it.
guys, as you know, because I've kept you abreast of this situation, Jen had something really crazy happen to her this summer while she was in New York.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to do my best not to interrupt. That's going to be difficult for me. I'm working on it. But, Jen, I want you to tell this story, and we'll actually have some of this stuff that we'll be able to. Riley's got some parts of the story that are going to be queued up on audio.
Okay. I'll tell you the basic gist. There's more like surrounding it. Like when I look back, I go, oh, this, but the basic gist, sorry. I was staying in an Airbnb in Brooklyn that I really had a connection with. I've been there for a month and I had stayed there. This was in June. I'd stayed there also in January. And when I walked in, I thought, I'm home. It's an old carriage house, if people aren't familiar, but they're a big thing in Brooklyn. And it's where people in the olden days used to keep their carriages with the horses and their Wired magazines and all these old-timey things. And it was, it was brand new. It was newly refurbished, like new everything. Anyway, I was on the bottom floor. There was family upstairs, blah, blah, blah. I felt a connection with this
family
place.
living in the attic?
No, not in the attic, but they were in the main brownstone, and I'm basically like the first floor. And I loved it there. Anyway, so I'm recording my podcast, which I record using my iPad in this app and a microphone, and I do it every week. And I sat there, I had a couple glasses of wine, and I was recording my podcast. And I didn't think anything of it. I did the same thing I always do. I uploaded it to this Dropbox. I have one person, producer Mike, who then takes it and he's jealous of producer Mike.
I thought you weren't going to try and interrupt.
Sorry.
What is he jealous of?
We got pretty far.
Producer Mike?
Producers.
Oh,
Just the concept of other producers.
I mean, he doesn't have a whole setup or a wolf sweater. He's just, he's nothing like you. So he uploaded to iTunes, and that was the end of that. And I have to say, this guy, Mike, he's not being paid a lot of money. He just gets the job done. He doesn't have time to fuck around with extra shit. I've known him for 5 years. We don't joke around. I don't know if he's ever made a joke.
Sounds like a great working relationship.
I never see him. He's not on the, he's not, he does it all remotely. He's not on mic like Riley. He also, like, we don't joke around. It's just like an email once a week. Hey, Mike, it's up. Oh, thanks. Cool. That's it. There's no real, like, he's a lovely person, but he's not a prankster, because people kept saying, when I tell you what's about to happen, somebody fucked with it. I'm like, they didn't. Like, anyway, so I put the podcast out, and about a week later, I'm getting all these tweets from people going, there's a ghost on your podcast. You picked up an EVP. There's a voice. What's going on? And I was like, no, I don't know. I'm sure I just didn't. And then it was getting so much. People were like, I'm scared. At 59 seconds, someone is saying, come to my room. And then I was like,
Wow.
oh, I better listen to this. And I heard it, and I didn't like it.
Wow.
I felt the same way I felt like this time my car got broken into. Like, I just felt violated and creepy, and I hated it. It was not fun. I love ghosts, but I've had ghost stuff happen in the past, and I wish they would leave me alone. I'm not trying to be in their lives. I think I might. I'd read once, I worked on a web short as part of a day job I had years ago, where this girl thought she had a ghost, and it turned out it was her boyfriend's aura. Was really bad because he was a very sick alcoholic who was drinking like a lot. And this woman was like, I'd be happy to give you like a ghost clearing, but it's his aura. There's just black, and that's what you're seeing.
Wow.
And this girl she broke up with him, and I think he went and got help, and then everything cleared up. So this woman was saying, even those of us who aren't alcoholic, if you have any alcohol on you, you will be susceptible because your boundaries are lessening.
Wow.
And so things from...
I've heard that before.
Yeah, things from the outside can get in easier.
I wonder if that's why they call it spirits.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that why?
There is a relation. Absolutely, there is to that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really kidding. I'm kidding.
That's cool as shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, so I think, it all makes sense. So anyway, apparently, I heard it, and I was freaked out, and so I mean, I think we have the audio of it.
Yeah, should we
You wanna
just play?
We do,
Yeah, we'll play what we heard. I heard "Come to My Room."
Right. And it's two the
moments.
voice interrupts twice within the same 30-second
And I will
window.
admit, the second time you hear it, it sounds like I'm doing something. Like I've paused it and put this up. I didn't do this. And producer Mike didn't do it. And he was so concerned. And he sent me all these articles about sound waves. And sometimes things get interrupted. And he's like, I'm sure it's not a ghost. And also, I didn't do it. Like, he would have told, I would have fired him if he did that. You know,
Right.
like, he didn't do it. And there's no one else that has access to it, whatever. But anyway, here it is.
Okay.
All right, so here's the first one. And just to follow up on what producer Mike said, when he asked me to edit these, I was 100% sure it was radio interference. And I was like, there's no way. And I pulled it up, and I was doing this last night at like 2 a.m, and just all of the hair on my arm stood up. It's not radio
It's not?
interference. No,
Because you know how,
not.
remember when you were a kid, like if you were on your landline, sometimes it would be like, and you'd have radio interference, or even on a cell phone too.
Yeah.
I'm convinced now that that's what it was. You don't think?
Doesn't sound like it to me.
Well, we have a professional here too, so this is why we want to get you.
You guys
in
be the judge. Here's the first one.
Yep.
On the one hand, I want to say no, because we have both emphatically stated that this is not what we want.
Play that again.
And just in case anyone's
I
wondering,
just got goosebumps. there.
I'm reading a listener email. It's a gay guy who got married to his partner, and his parents want them to have like a big wedding, and so he wanted my advice. So that's, if it sounds a little weird, it's because I'm reading something.
Yeah, and it's just out of context. But
Yeah.
here it is again.
On the one hand, I want to say no, because we have both emphatically stated that this is not what we want.
Man, goosebumps.
Play it one more
Wait till
time.
the
Play it one more
louder
time.
one. Yeah. On the one hand, I want to say no, because we have both emphatically stated that this is not what we want. And now play the next one.
Okay, and then
That's the
about
one
a
that's
minute
really
So
later.
you hear someone say, "Come to my room."
Come to
yeah,
my room.
that's what
Yeah, that's wild.
Here's the next one about a minute later.
It just sounds like you don't want this.
Wow.
Also, it's weird that both times it happens, you're saying, I don't want this. Or like the first one's like emphatically stated it's not what I wanted. And then later you're saying, I don't want this again.
that's
and
so
it comes in
weird.
both times.
Play them
that
again
you
back
say
to
that.
back.
Yeah.
I don't hear the room part as clear. I hear the come to my, and then,
I think it says something else.
Yes.
I'm going to play the first one and then the second one.
yeah.
On the one hand, I want to say no, because we have both emphatically stated that this is not what we want.
Sounds like book. Come to my,
It just sounds like you don't want
come
this.
to my book.
I think
my
he says,
book?
"Come get my book."
You think so?
Because I hear a t sound.
I hear a
Come to my
cut.
book.
Like,
Here's the second one again.
yeah.
It just sounds like you don't want this.
Come get my book.
I see. I hear the come to my.
Maybe it's go to my book.
So it's like a
man.
ghost author.
Well,
so
maybe
we
there's-
had,
we have, yeah.
Maybe
so
there's
this is
a
the
book
best part of the
buried
story.
there or something.
when I heard it,
That
First of
is
all,
creepy.
can we all agree that's creepy?
Totally
it's so
fucking-
It's
creepy.
weird, right?
Oh,
Let's take a
God.
moment and acknowledge
I mean,
what the fuck
can a
was
woman
that?
ever get any peace in this life? From real men to ghost men.
Jeez.
So here's just, if anyone's interested in a few details about that week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not someone with insomnia. I usually fall right asleep. I can read one word in bed and then I'm just passed out. The only kind of insomnia I get is wake up in the middle of the night insomnia. And so that happens and then that's fine. And that there's always an explanation for that. I usually have to pee or whatever, or it's too hot. In that week, I was having the weirdest insomnia. I could not fall asleep, and I was radically energized to the point where I got scared once and thought, am I like becoming manic in my old age? So this one night I lay down, I go to bed. I am really tired. And then I'm getting more and more energized as I'm laying in bed. And I'm like, God, maybe I should do some work. I did a little work. I read, and I just never fell asleep. And it didn't bother me. I suddenly didn't feel tired. And then maybe
This was all in that carriage house?
it was
The
on that
week of?
carriage house.
Yeah.
It was maybe a few days before I recorded the podcast. And I was, I just remember that. And I went to work and I said to my coworker, I didn't sleep last night. She's like, really? You wouldn't know it. And I was like, I'm weirded out. I've been awake 24 hours. And she was like, well, I don't know. I was like, I think I'm like going manic. And she's like a little bit older than me. She's like, it's totally like hormones, like menopause.
So she saw Taxi in the original run. That's what you're saying.
She saw Taxi in the original run. And
She's
she
like,
was
it could be either two things. You could be manic or it could be EVP coming up.
She's like,
Those
you
are
know, I started to get that way like in my like mid 40s, like it's the beginning of menopause, like your hormones get crazy, which is also true. You know, I'm like, okay, great. Happens again the next night. I'm like, this is absurd. So I just I was like, well, I need to sleep. And so I took like Benadryl and all this stuff. I just knocked myself out. And I couldn't stay down that deeply. I mean, and I took Klonopin and Benadryl and this. And I would always sleep with the light on in the living room. And this night I put the light on in the room because I just felt like it. And I think I was starting to go mental because I hadn't slept in a couple of days. But and then I slept fine the next night. But there was a few nights like that where I just kept waking up at 3 a.m. or I never fell asleep. And
3 a.m, there's that hour of high strangeness again.
It's when the veil
it was always
becomes
3 a.m.
lightest.
Yeah.
And I would just sit there and I'd go, I think I'm going to put the light on and keep it on. That's what happened one night. 3 a.m, I woke up and I just was like, I felt like, I'm not going to say like someone was watching me, but I just went, I want the light on because I don't want any shenanigans going. I don't know.
You felt
Your sixth
uneasy.
sense,
Something
your-
was someone was tipping you
Your
off.
sixth
And
sense
so-
was-
Also, like my iPod that I record on iPad was acting really weird. So right before that Come to My Room happened, my sister pointed out that on the podcast I said, hey guys, sorry for that. My thing just fucking crashed and I'm starting again. And then Come to My Room or whatever he says happened. So the software kept crashing and I got a new iPad. I never used that one again because I felt it was being weird for like a week in that place.
Even after.
Before and after, yeah.
Wow.
And so then I re-downloaded the software on my new iPad. It's never crashed once.
Wow.
And the other iPad, the only thing I had on it was that software. There was so much gigabytes left. I only used it for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so just weird little things that I look back and I went, ugh. So weird. So I recorded that podcast on a Thursday. 3 days later, I had to move out of that Airbnb anyway because I only had it for a month. The girl that rented it to me was coming back, and I was moving into a new one for a month. So I record the podcast. It hasn't gone out into the public yet, and I have no idea that the ghost happened. 3 days later, I'm moving into the new Airbnb and I brought in all my stuff and I had this feeling and I went, I'm going to go buy some sage, which I love to sage my apartment, but I have never saged anywhere that I've traveled. And I said, I feel like I just need to get some energy out of here. Like maybe the last tenants I didn't feel anything bad.
And you hadn't, the podcast hadn't been posted yet.
No,
or
not
you
at
hadn't
all.
been hearing any of these reactions
Nothing.
yet.
I just got this urge to sage and I went and weirdly, I had an appointment to get Reiki healing that day.
Wow.
Because I do it sometimes. And she said, there's a lot of she said, well, I mean, I was like going through something as well. But she was like, there's a lot of kind of like longing in you and you need to like let go of something. And obviously like that was why I was going because I could feel this physical anxiety. So she was like just helping me work through some physical stuff. And she said to me, there's just a lot on you. Like she just kept being like, there's a lot on you. So I think we cleared some of that out. Like I don't know. So then I got some stuff there and then I got some sage at that place and I came home and I burned sage. And I was thinking of it as like I'm cleansing my own shit, but I couldn't sleep again in that new place.
Weird.
And I was like waking up at 3 a.m. again. And this time I was like, I feel something here. And I would sleep with the light on. And so that's why when I got the messages from my podcast listeners that they heard a ghost, I didn't want to accept it because I felt like it wasn't in the carriage house, but it was like around me.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe it followed you.
I put everything together and I was like, I don't like this. Like I thought like I'm possessed by the devil. I just was like, no. So that's why it was so upsetting to me. Like it wasn't funny. It wasn't cool. I was like, I wish this never happened. Like I freaked out. So
Right.
I contact you, Michael, like within a half hour of hearing that thing.
Yeah.
And this is the part where I get emotional, where I'm like, the beautiful thing to me, whether it was radio interference or whatever, I was in New York so lonely. I've been there working for 6 months. I don't have a lot of friends left there. They all moved to LA. I just was like working on another project. So I'd go home from work and work. I was just isolated a lot. And I was there last year too. And I feel like I've missed out on all my friends and I haven't really hung out with people and I haven't hung out with you in so long. And the fact that right away you jumped into action and really cared. And I know it's also your hobby.
No.
But I was like, what a cool thing that I have these deep friendships that even if we don't see each other for a while, like it's totally acceptable for them to jump in and help me. And there was something like, even if that's what all this was about, like for me to remember, like I'm not alone was so beautiful to me.
Oh, that's so sweet.
But
No,
I
I was out running errands and I get this text. She's like, "Oh, guys, people are telling me I got a ghost on my podcast." And I was kind of like, really? I was like, EVPs, we've had them on with Donna Lynn Champlin, who's captured them, and she comes into the story in a minute as well. And I was like, well, I'll take a look, or I'll take a listen. And I was like standing in line at Starbucks, and I was like, boom, the hair just stood up on my arms. I was like, oh, yeah. And I think I texted you, I was like, yeah. You got a ghost. You got a ghost. This is an EVP. I was just like, yep, there's no mistake about it.
It's really distinct, isn't it?
And then
it really stands out.
Within 5 minutes.
Because you were like, what's happening? Am I possessed by the devil? And I think I had to talk.
Jump to conclusions.
I realized I freaked you out because I was so like, oh yeah, you got something here. I was thinking like jackpot. Oh my god! But then you were like, fuck, am I possessed? And I was like, no, it's not a demon. It's not a demon. You're like, I'm pretty sure it's a demon. I'm like, no, it's not. I promise you, it's not a demon.
Wow. There's so many texts. I was like, it's pretty much a demon.
Oh no! Great, I got a demon.
Talking you down from the fact it wasn't a demon. I was like, oh shit. So I was like, you know what? I think I got somebody who can help. And I contacted Donna Lynn Champlin. And so I had 2 text threads going. I had one with Jen, one with Donna Lynn. Donna Lynn's like, oh yeah. Oh,
Within 5 minutes, he starts a new text thread called Ghostbusters.
Oh my god!
And he puts us all on it together.
He must have been in Paranormal Paradise.
Yes.
Oh, this is what we train for.
So listen to this. So listen to what Donna Lynn does.
Yeah. What did she do?
Well, she contacted.
No, you tell, because I'm going to forget. I was freaking out. My coworker kept coming in going, "Are you still texting about that?" I'm like, "There was a ghost."
Yeah,
because I played it for him. He's like, "That's radio interference," and I was like, "Get out of here."
Well, I put you guys on the same thread because Donna Lynn's like, "Would she mind if I contact my mentor?" She's speaking about her, I believe, Wiccan mentor. Mm-hmm. It was like, we can do a remote cleansing, and I have some questions for Jen. So basically, Donna Lynn and her friend performed remotely a cleansing ritual to banish and let this spirit go. And they had decided. Now, Donna Lynn was the first to point out, it's saying, come get my book.
So she thought that too.
And I listened to it. I was like, I think. And Jen was like, no, the demons got me, and the demon's saying, "Come to my room."
Interesting.
But so I guess Donna Lynn, and I'm obviously speaking.
I heard
for her,
book today for the first time
because I hear K on the end of it.
That Donna Lynn and her friend had said what that they had, because Donna Lynn's friend, I guess, is better at this than Donna Lynn is, but they had decided that this was a conservative older man who had once lived in that carriage house and was triggered by Jen's story about gay marriage. And what he might have been saying was, come get my book, like I want to show you the Bible or this or that. And then he wasn't even though it sounds very creepy and malevolent, that he wasn't necessarily a bad
Well, they said too
guy,
that
right? What did they tell you?
They said my insomnia was him there. She said it was like a chatty husband, like you're laying in bed and your husband just like, and anyway, my day was like this and blah, 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 blah. And he was keeping me awake. And that does resonate with me about the energy I was feeling. Like that he was trying to get my attention and was like, I'll go into the machine then if I have to. And it freaked me out because it's like he knew like she's never going to hear me. I have to jump into this thing.
Yeah.
And then she said something like it matched up with like the longing stuff. It was like he wanted to go to the other side. I don't know if he had someone on the other side or, he'd been widowed or I don't know what it was. But she said something like he needed to move on and go through to the other thing. But my Reiki session was about me moving on from something that like is hanging over me forever.
Right.
And I just thought that was weird that if this is true, that our energies lined up like that.
Right.
That's where I'm leaning more towards.
And she was like, made me feel so good. The way she spun it was, so then after all that, I said, okay, and it's fine with me, do whatever. She gave me specific, like, chants or mantras or prayers or
Right.
whatever you want to call them, to
Right.
go home and sage, make an X in everything, a window, a door, a mirror, any opening, and say, spirits don't, whatever. Basically,
a lot of those things
go.
that triggered Kevin Kirkpatrick, if you remember months back when
Right.
she tried to help
Right.
guide Kevin through saging
Right.
his house, and he was freaked out by all the Christian iconography.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah, no, that didn't bother me. And she was like,
Yeah.
you could say anything like father, mother energy, whatever. Just basically good energy. It's like poltergeist. Like,
Yeah.
get
Yeah,
this bad energy
I
out.
really vibe with kind of what you're saying. I mean, I think if it's more like, if everything's running on energy, frequency, and vibration, that if this phenomena was sort of the transmitter and you were the receiver, however you were feeling in and up in that week, or, that you guys could have aligned and coalesced on some sort of same type of frequency or vibration, allowing that phenomena to come through in your podcast or,
Yeah.
into that room, or, not so much maybe I would disagree with like, personalizing it as like, he didn't like the, the planning of the gay marriage thing or something like that. I think that becomes too subjective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's definitely more with like aligning a frequency and allowing something like that to come through, almost as if it's like a leftover, energy plasma or something like that, and you just happen to like walk through that wave.
I feel that. And then when it was all done, because I was really scared, it was kind of
So
weird.
did you do all the?
I did everything.
Yeah.
I was still, she was like, let me know how it goes the next day. I think I was texting you that night. I was like, I'm in bed. I still don't feel better. Now, here's what was crazy. At the same time, I was watching Goliath, that show on Amazon?
Right.
And season 2.
I
That'll
haven't
do it.
seen it.
It was really scary for me. I don't like anything scary. It was like real fucked up. And I'm watching it in bed. I'm like, well, maybe that's not helping. So I put that down. But I was afraid to get in touch. Like, I was afraid to think positive things. I don't know. I just felt negative and weird. And I woke up and it was fine. But I was like, I don't think it worked. It's a demon. And then I felt fine and everything just kind of lifted. And I slept fine and I didn't feel like I had to have the lights on or anything like that.
Yeah.
And what I liked that Donna was saying was, you really, there's nothing negative that happened. You weren't possessed. You weren't whatever. She's like, you really helped him. Like, you're a hero. You're the hero of the
Yeah.
story. Like
Yeah.
and for some reason, it just made me cry. I was like, let's just say there's no ghosts or whatever. But my energy of like needing to let go and like go to my own other side, let's just say I somehow manifested a weird voice that made people
some sort
then
of psychic telekinetic
conscious
manifestation. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that made someone say something to me about how someone needs to go to the other side and let go, and that's what someone else had said to me the day before in a Reiki. Whatever it is, I was like, whoa, there's so much energy out there. I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just felt different since that happened. And I felt like I did an episode about it a week later where I explained, like, I don't care what it was, if it was ghosts or not.
Mm-hmm.
What's more important to me was like, I thought of our friendship. I thought of how cool it is that people just want to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And then how lovely it is to, I don't know, I just liked, and then this people that even listen to this dumb podcast I do, that they would even like.
We know how that feels.
That they would even like want to talk to me. But I don't know, it was just great. And I felt like there's just this little safe world I've made with the people in my life.
Yeah.
And I came back to LA and I'm just never been happier because I'm with all my people. And I've literally been like every 5 minutes on the verge of tears because I'm so grateful to be back and I don't feel isolated anymore.
Right.
It's not that New York was isolating. I was isolating while there.
Mhm.
And as a protection against like just all the stress and stuff I was going through. And that doesn't work. Only connection with other people
Wow.
relieves anything.
You were the ghost
Carl
of
Jung-
your own haunting.
I mean, Carl Jung
Don't
would
you
have a field
think?
day with us.
Maybe.
Absolutely. So,
It's a good sentence.
this whole thing, electronic voice phenomena, is a mystery, and it is a phenomena. Nobody really knows if it's like, spirits or, souls from beyond the grave, which a lot of people think it is. But, there's another theory that's like, and this goes into all the paranormal stuff. You have the lights in the sky and stuff like this, that through our own consciousness, we are actually, through our heightened emotions and the energy that it creates, we are actually the cause and the creation of some of this phenomena. You know what I mean? So experiencing all that, trauma that you were feeling, it might have manifested in some sort of, I don't know if I believe that. I'm more on the side of like this, that maybe that was something from the other side or something like that. But
I'm just more into like, however I need to learn a lesson, like tell it to me. And sometimes if I'm not listening, like the world will hit me with something weird like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Ever since then, it's like when people die on the operating table and then they're not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of ghosts anymore. It doesn't really bother me.
Wow. And now
so,
you can listen to the podcast.
And now I can listen to the podcast. And so like, and that's why I was saying now I actually can listen. It doesn't scare me. I feel in control of it. And I do feel like, because I think I was texting you about it, Michael, like, I'm sick of this. There's always been ghosts bothering me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want
you've
it.
said that already.
Yeah.
On this. Like,
I said it earlier.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier.
And now I'm like, you know what? Like, even though it is weird, it's fine. Like, I feel special in a weird way.
Right.
That maybe
you took the reins
I'm
back.
intuitive. Yeah.
God, how that is so...
I mean, I don't want any demons. I would like
That
to
being
put that
said-
out there.
Next step, demons.
It is interesting though that you mentioned that when you first came to that place, you felt really at home. Like
Yes.
it's something clicked with you in that space.
I walked in, and the girl there was actually, usually at an Airbnb, they're not still there cleaning after check-in. And she's like, I'm so sorry. But she was a neat freak like me, and she was really cool. And she's like, do you want some wine? And I'm just like, I love it here. And she said, I said, if you ever move, will you let me know? Like, I want this place. And then she's like, totally. And then, of course, she is moving, but because the landlord jacked up the rent, I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
But anyway, but yeah, I just said, I don't know what it is here, but I love it. This feels like mine.
Wow.
So what do we think? If it was like, I want to explore this just a tiny bit. So if it was like, come to my room, or if it was come get my book, what do you think that that means, or that was trying to accomplish or say?
Well, I think that's where the narrative that you objected to comes from. I think in this situation, you kind of have to take some of this for face value. Okay, if it is a conscious entity conversing with you, you have to look at the evidence that's there on tape, right? And it's kind of like what Riley pointed out, I think really astutely, which I hadn't caught before, was he also interrupts 2 times where she's saying, at first, quoting the guy saying, at first I thought no, and then the other time saying, I didn't want this. So if it's a call and response, you have, I want to know, come get my book, and I didn't want this, come get my book, right? So it, to me, and perhaps to Donna Lynn's mentor, Donna Lynn, I don't know, I was involved in that part of the story directly. It could be a guy saying, hey, check out, if he was a conservative guy, he might be saying, well, let's look and see what the Bible says. You know what I mean? I don't know. Or saying, let me help, or look at this, or I need to show you something.
Yeah, she said there could have been an option too where he heard marriage and wanted to marry them or something.
Yeah, oh, right, sure. Or maybe he's interrupting, trying to talk to Jen. Maybe he's saying, I have a book, I have a journal where I wrote everything about myself. Maybe it's buried somewhere in the walls. I mean, I'm speculating. Yeah. But he could have just been trying to...
More location-centric.
Yeah, or just trying to talk over the guy who's writing into Jen and being like, no, listen to me. I have a story too. Come get my book, come to my room.
That resonates with me. And I feel like where I was sitting
we can only speculate, really, but...
Yeah.
Where I was sitting was like a bench at the kitchen table and with a clear view of the bedroom. And I always have a book just sitting on my bed. I mean, it's my Kindle, so it's not a book. But, and I feel like when I heard that, I feel like he was saying, can you come back in the bedroom? That's where we spend our special time. That's where I'm downloading to you every night. That's where you feel me. Like, come get my, like, come in here. That's why I thought it was come to my room for so long. And not in like a creepy way, but just like, come back.
Yeah, come back.
Yeah. And that's what I thought. And maybe if there is a book, I don't know what, but I like that notion of it's a journal or something.
Well, I would trust your instinct on that.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's the thing that we always kind of reiterate with people who have these eyewitness accounts or firsthand experiences. Trust what your gut tells you. I mean, there's fear there as well, obviously. I mean, a lot of us were like, it's not a demon. I think that was your fear talking.
Yeah.
But now that you've had time to process and look back on it, I'd say you're the best person to interpret that experience. And it sounds like you've done an excellent job of doing it and found like a really cool way to personalize that experience as well and have it be a teachable moment, but...
Totally.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think I also like the notion of like in my head, and I don't know where I'm getting this. He's trying to get to his wife on the other side, and he's like been lonely without her and all this stuff. And so I felt like I helped someone do that, if that's true.
Helps communicate a message, sure.
Yeah, and so I thought that was kind of neat. Like, look how we all help each other.
You know, there's a new show on I forget where it is, but it's called they rebooted In Search Of, and starring Zachary Quinto and Zachary Quinto, and the old In Search Of used to be hosted by Leonard Nimoy, and they would explore various topics, like, you know, that's where I first saw the Patterson Gimlin film of Bigfoot walking across Bluff Creek, but they also explore like alien life after death, all these really cool topics. And so I was watching last week.
I've been meaning to check it out. Is it good?
Well, check out the episode on life after death, because they do a whole segment about EVP. This guy, he loses his daughter in a horrible car accident. She's like 17 or 18, and then immediately he started. I forget how the story plays out, but he starts getting these messages through his radio and recording electronic voice phenomena from her.
Whoa.
So much to the fact that he quits his job and he manufactures and invents this equipment for recording personalized EVP recorders and stuff like that. And there's what they play one thing. He has it all on digital audio file where the voice from the daughter it says something, "Tell mom it's okay." You know, like, so, I mean, but right. And what he was saying is that he's actually comforted by these EVPs that he was getting. Yeah. And because he felt that he was in communication with his daughter. And they even show, so he took his bedroom in the segment and he actually put up video cameras because, you know, the contact was like increasing. And so he set up video cameras in his room along with his audio recording equipment, and he captured. And so he would like invite the presence. He would invite her to come communicate. And you see this orb, this white orb, float into the video and like kind of hover over him and then shoot out the window. And it was like, I mean, it really kind of like puts the evidence of like audio and visual, and like it really starts to play like, God, maybe there's something beyond the grave that is like, you know, if it needs or wants to communicate badly enough that it you know, it can find ways and opportunities to do so.
That's crazy. That also freaks me out because it's like, okay, maybe it is my daughter, but what if it's someone pretending to be
That's
something
the demons.
pretending to be my daughter?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Gotta be
That freaks
careful
me out.
with this
I know.
stuff, guys.
You don't want a Bell Witch instance happening in your house. What channel is In Search Of on? Do you remember? Or what did you watch it on?
I think it was either History or TLC, or
I think it's History, maybe.
Yeah,
I gotta watch it.
But check it out. If you, it was called, it's the Life After Death segment, and it's worth a look at, especially after hearing your story of EVP.
Real quick, I
I
want to
know
say,
Zach. I'd like to get him on the show. That would be awesome.
I've stayed in over 7 Airbnbs in the last 2 years, and I do not have a personal relationship with anybody who I've rented from, even people I've stayed with a month. They would find it very odd if I texted them out of the blue during my stay, like, I love your taste. And this girl and I would text all the time. And she would be like, you're so great. I'm just going to like, the wine I was drinking during the podcast was a bottle she had bought me and left in the apartment. Like she was in town, and she would like, I'd be like, drop by and like get your things as you need to. Like, I don't care. I'm at work all the time. Anyway, my point is, I actually, of all people, do have a relationship with her. I could text her and say, have you ever had any weird experiences? But I'm afraid of looking crazy. So, but
I
isn't
don't
that
think so.
interesting
You
that
have
of all the
evidence.
people I have a relationship with, it's someone that might have information for me, but I'm afraid to ask. Because I'm not going to be like, I have a podcast and then here's the EVP. Like, too much.
Send her this podcast.
No.
Send this to her and be like,
I'm going to sound like
Hey.
a psycho.
I don't think so.
And like, if, let's say she knew, quote, who I was. Like, if she knew, oh, you're a comedian, I've seen your Netflix. Maybe I'd feel more comfortable. I'd be like, oh, I have to do this podcast. But she's just like, I don't know who you are. I don't know who you're
Imagine if there was more to this story. I mean, you know, what we find out is that people are, even though they sometimes seem stranger to all this stuff, they themselves, I mean, we're finding more people are like connected to like strange happenings than than usually the people like to believe. I mean,
Yeah, true.
Maybe-
I could just say to
maybe
her.
just open a dialogue, like
Meanwhile, right now she's floating 7 feet above her bed, spinning and screaming as like candlesticks float around the room.
I could just say to her, now that I'm back in LA, I wanted to ask you this. I'm sorry if I sound crazy. Did you ever experience anything weird? Because I've had
That's
some
a great
weird
way to put
experiences
it.
in your apartment, but I didn't want to freak you out. And I think she's since moved.
Yeah, do it.
So that's all. I'm not going to say the EVP. I'll just say
Yeah.
I felt a presence and I couldn't sleep. And
yeah.
She'd be like, "Oh, you mean Harold?" Yeah, I know.
I think that's a great way to open up. Have you
Yeah.
ever felt or experienced anything weird in that
It's like,
apartment?
what? Who is this?
Have you or your friends experienced a ghost, spook, or specter? That Ghostbusters ad, that's the best.
All I can think about this is some sort of Cloud Atlas scenario where you actually lived in that apartment back in the
Yeah,
day.
I thought about that too.
And the book is like a picture of you in like old timey clothes.
You are the
Oh my
wife.
God,
You're the
yeah,
wife.
Right.
I just don't believe that we're so reincarnated. I don't
You
believe
know, I don't think that's
reincarnation.
true.
No.
It's just all I can think
How
about.
cool would it be, though?
It's just a
or
great
just a weird
story.
time-space continuum. Like,
Yeah.
Well, that would be the multi-universe
I look great
theory,
in
you know?
old-timey stuff, too.
There
like,
you go.
I meant to be from there. I have an 1800s face.
It's a lovely one. We don't need any more high strangeness on the episode, but we do have more in store. But before we do that, I want to play a quick game with Jen that we had not yet invented when you came onto the podcast for your first visit. This is a game called Bullshit or Believe It. It's rapid fire.
Ooh.
I'm going to go down a list of things.
Okay.
If you believe in it, you say believe it. If you think it's bullshit, if you don't, say bullshit. Obviously, you can use intonation and inflection however you want if you're skeptical or you're undecided. But you have two
Only
answers.
those 2 words.
Okay, ready?
Mhm.
And we can circle back on anything you want to talk about after down the list. On your mark, get set, ghosts,
Believe it.
UFOs, Bigfoot, angels.
Believe. Bullshit.
Gnomes.
Bullshit.
JFK assassination conspiracy.
Believe it.
Fairies.
Which one? But I believe one of them. Fairies. Fairies? No, bullshit.
Unicorns.
Bullshit.
Loch Ness Monster.
Believe it.
Alien Greys.
Who?
Alien Greys. Like the gray aliens
Oh.
with the big
Believe
black
it.
eyes.
Believe it.
Parallel universes.
Believe it.
Reptilians disguising themselves as humans.
Bullshit.
Mermaids.
Bullshit.
Heaven.
Bullshit.
Hell.
Bullshit.
Dragons.
Bullshit.
Yeti.
Isn't that Bigfoot?
Abominable snowman.
Believe it.
Elves.
Bullshit.
She gave that one to us.
Thank you.
ESP.
Believe it.
Chupacabra.
Bullshit.
Demons.
Guess I believe it.
Atlantis.
Bullshit.
Life on other planets.
Believe it.
World peace.
Bullshit.
Peace in the multiverse.
Believe it.
Great. Well done.
That was
Thank you.
amazing.
Good job. Wait, so
That was amazing.
I'm so surprised you said bullshit to UFOs.
Well, I do believe that there are unidentified flying objects, of course. I just don't think they've come here and that anyone has seen one. Because of time space shit. But I do believe there are aliens.
Oh, right. Because you think they're time travelers, maybe.
I think that just how would they get here? Like, we wouldn't. It takes too long. I don't know. There's something weird.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what?
What?
We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and I got a story that's going to challenge that belief.
All right. Turn one of those bullshits into believe. I was just telling Jen I made a little printout on a short EVP
What a
history.
good boy.
But it's not generally known that in the 1920s, Thomas Edison tried to invent a machine that would communicate with the dead. Thinking this was possible, he wrote, "If our personality survives, then it is strictly logical or scientific to assume that it remains memory, intellect, other faculties, and knowledge that we acquire on this earth. Therefore, if we can evolve an instrument so delicate as to be affected by our personality, as it survives in the next life, such an instrument, when made available, ought to record something."
That's amazing, and I love it because he's a man of science, and
Yeah.
he's looking at this scientifically.
Yeah.
And it was made, Thomas Edison. It is my podcast app called iRig.
Oh, wow. There you go. Yeah, that's wild.
Oh, he would have loved my podcast.
Yeah, he would have.
I mean, just that moment.
No,
Maybe not
probably
like
the whole thing.
No, you think?
Yeah.
The whole thing. Yeah, hell yeah. So, moving on to Jen's disbelief in UFOs.
Well,
what are you going
guys,
to do about that, Mike?
You know, we've talked a lot about UFOs on this show before, but we haven't really talked about the birth of modern UFOlogy or ufology. And this is a story that we've mentioned a couple times in passing on the show, and I thought to myself, you know what? I don't really know the details on this. Bryce, I think you probably do better than I. But this is the story of Kenneth Arnold and the birth of the flying saucer.
Yeah. Amazing.
June 24th, 1947, private pilot Kenneth Arnold was flying over Washington State when he spotted a fleet of 9 radiant, unidentifiable craft flying in formation over Mount Rainier. The sighting would gain massive popularity in the press and coin the term flying saucer. In fact, it's the first post-war sighting in the U.S. that really sparked the modern UFO phenomenon that we are arguably still living in today. So Kenneth Arnold, he was born in 1915, so he's, I think if I've done my math right, he's 32 at the time of this sighting. Math is not my strong suit, but that's really basic math. He was born in Minnesota, grew up in Scobie, Montana, but by the late 40s, he was a successful businessman who sold private mechanized firefighting systems and equipment all across the Pacific Northwest. So like sprinkler systems and, fire extinguishers. He was also a skilled private pilot who had recently purchased a Cal Air A-2 airplane that he flew around for business, selling fire extinguishers and often taking off and landing in cow pastures, which according to him is a very difficult thing to do. So the Cal Air A-2, this is kind of an old school propeller airplane that you see flying, I think it's kind of similar to the ones that Harrison Ford is always crashing and surviving.
Good.
So on June 24th, 1947, Kenneth was flying from Chenalis, Washington to Yakima on one of those very business excursions when he made a brief detour to search for a supposed U.S. Marine Corps C-6 that had crashed somewhere around Mount Rainier. There was a $5,000 reward. He heard about it on the radio, and he thought, well, I'll go see if I can help out and maybe make a little money. Kenneth Arnold, all about business. I think this guy actually was a really savvy business guy. That's not to take any credibility away from him or this sighting, but as you'll see, he really knew how to capitalize on what happened to him. So just a couple minutes before 3 p.m., as he was flying at about 9,000 feet over Mineral, Washington, searching for this C-6 and having no luck, Kenneth saw a flash of light over Mount Rainier, and he looks out his cockpit window to the left and sees a fleet of 9 aircraft flying in V formation emerge from behind the mountain peaks. And at first, Arnold wondered if the objects were U.S. fighter jets. And he was startled to be traveling in such close airspace. But he knew he wasn't alone in the skies that day. There was a DC-9 off to his right, safely off in the distance, and so he checked and made sure that plane was still there, which it was. But there was something strange about these particular objects. If they were fighter jets, where were their tails? As the objects flew across the mountain range at a speed Arnold would later conclude, using pilot math, was approximately 1,200 miles per hour. Now, Chuck Yeager would go on to break the speed of sound that October.
Wow.
So this has not happened yet. And that is around 758 miles per hour. And Arnold could tell basically by, he's just a smart guy. He knows he went later and looked at the distance between the mountain peaks that he saw these, and he said it took about a minute and a half for these guys to travel. And he said, if you're standing on the ground and watching something fly overhead, the speed looks different relative to if you're flying alongside somebody, and you can usually see even something traveling very fast, you can see them for a lot longer than he was able to see these. So he knew that they were moving really, really fast based on the distance between the mountain peaks and how quickly it took from them to go from his field of vision left to right. So this is basically showing off technology that the government did not have, was not capable of at that time at those speeds. And as they flew, they would occasionally tilt towards his plane, sending little flashes of bright bluish light in his direction, either off the sun or it may have been radiating some kind of light itself. The shape of the crafts, Arnold could see, were rounded in the front like the letter D, curving on each side to 2 points at the tail end, and then with a smaller point in the center of the rear part of the craft. They kind of looked like boomerangs, and I'll show you a picture here that we'll throw up. Obviously, you can go to our Instagram feed and scroll through. So they kind of looked like this. They almost kind of look like one of Batman's batarangs.
Totally.
Without the pointy ears on the batarang. The objects were wider than they were thin. He said that they were they looked to be about 12 meters wide, maybe, but they were just super thin. And I have to check to see about the length of those, though, how wide they were. But they held form and did not spin or spiral as they flew across the sky. Arnold later said in an interview with a reporter that they, quote, flew erratic like a saucer if you skip it across the water.
Right, that's the famous quote, yeah.
After the objects vanished from view, Arnold circled back and flew on to Yakima. When he landed, he told a pilot friend and a couple other pilots hanging around the airport about what he saw. And his friend kind of laughed him. He listened courteously, Arnold said, but kind of laughed him off. And a couple of the other pilots said, probably what you saw are these things called guided missiles. We have the ability to have these guided missiles. But something about the encounter took hold in Arnold's mind. There was something eerie about that.
Just
experience.
9 guided missiles flying across Washington.
Going where?
It's probably what you saw. They shoot missiles like that all the time around here.
So by that night, the press was reaching out to Kenneth Arnold, and within 2 days, his sighting became national news. Now, here's the thing that you have to kind of put into context, which was there had been reports, in the turn of the century of airships or mysterious air balloons, and sometimes people reported stories of those pilots who looked human landing in their yards and having sort of like steampunky outfits on. There was something going on in Sweden called ghost rockets or ghost missiles that people had seen, but there really wasn't happening stateside in the U.S. other than, I think, the Battle of L.A. that happened in 1941, where there was some sort of craft that apparently flew over that they all thought was a Japanese warship. The term UFO was not popular at this point, and I'm not even sure it was invented yet.
No, that came later. That
came later through the military trying to categorize this phenomenon. So this idea of alien spacecraft or whatever was not in the lexicon of American society yet. Mm-hmm. So when he saw these crafts, he was not putting it into context of alien spaceships. He was baffled because he could not explain what he saw. And he knew that there was something technological about them. And this is actually a big leap in the history of aerial phenomena, because before this, when people would see something in the sky, they often attributed to it as something religious, some sort of spiritual encounter. But after this, and because of this, Kenneth Arnold saw this and he said it was I think he said something, and I'm paraphrasing, that it was technological and therefore knowable. And suddenly we became, as a society, infatuated with the idea that there was some kind of new technology flying around the skies. So these reports became really popular, and this made international news. And that famous quote about him saying he saw them skipping, they were flying like saucers skipping across water, That got misquoted, put into a headline that said that a pilot saw flying saucers.
Yeah, it's usually some inventive journalist who coins these terms.
Yep. And so this term flying saucer took off, even though that's not what he actually said, nor were the crafts actually saucer shaped.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll see he leaned into it and sort of knew, like a good businessman, he's like, well, this is the meme. I mean, they didn't say that back then, but that's the meme that took off, and he embraced it. But he was kind of annoyed by the fact I never actually called them flying saucers. So he was interviewed by the military. They thought there was some rumors going around, and some people were thinking maybe it was some kind of Russian technology that they later poo-pooed and decided that wasn't it. And the official Air Force explanation for this became he had seen mirages.
It's in your head.
It's a mirage.
Yeah.
It was a mountain mirage.
Oh yeah.
And at elevated peaks, it's kind of like when when you're driving down a road, a hot road. If you're in the desert out here in the Mojave, you can see the wavy lines ahead. That happens on mountaintops too, but they're stationary. They don't move across the sky.
And they're not so definitive.
Yeah.
It looks like wavy lines.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, he's a very experienced pilot. He knows that he's seeing some sort of technological craft, at least from his point of view. So that was it. I mean, that's basically how the flying saucer phenomenon was born. In the following weeks, Americans started seeing more and more crafts.
Mm-hmm.
As a massive UFO flap, the first in modern American history, began and lasted for the next few weeks, over the next month. Very similar to the UFO flap of 1952 that we talked about with our guest, Danny Jollis.
Sure, over Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and suddenly, I'm sure some people were hopping on the bandwagon. There was some mass hysteria taking place, but flying saucers were suddenly everywhere. And it all culminates in a now infamous crash that took place in Roswell, New Mexico, only 3 weeks after this first sighting.
Oh, that's incredible. I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's a great backstory.
So that happened. The Roswell crash happens in the midst of this huge UFO flap that people are seeing. And because no one really knew what they were yet, even in the initial story reported by the Roswell, I think, Gazette, I can't remember the name of the local paper, they said the military has recovered a crashed flying saucer.
Right.
And that went to press before Army PR could get word to the Gazette to go, no, don't print that. Don't print that. We want to take that back. We don't want people knowing that's what it is. And they were like, sorry, it's already literally gone out. So the cover-up and the narrative changed starting the next day, the next morning, and that's when they brought in Jesse Marcel to pose with tinfoil and say it was a weather balloon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's a different podcast. So we'll
For sure.
Get to. But Kenneth Arnold would not lose interest in the UFO phenomenon. In fact, he quickly became one of the country's leading ufologists and advocates, investigating eyewitness reports and also writing a book called The Coming of the Saucers, where he wrote about his own experience and then other people's experiences that he interviewed. And again, like any good salesman, he really leaned into the branding on that one.
Sure.
So one of Arnold's first investigations was an account that supposedly took place just 3 days before Arnold's own sighting at a place called Maury Island. And it is a strange case that brought Kenneth Arnold face-to-face with the notorious Men in Black for the first time in recorded history.
Oh.
But that is also a story for another day.
Tease you.
Just a side note, there was at least one other witness that day to what Kenneth Arnold saw.
I was going to say, yeah, there were a few witnesses who saw that.
Yeah,
right?
there was a prospector by the name of Fred Johnson who was...
Fred Johnson.
Yeah, exactly.
That could be my old great-great-grandfather.
Yes, he loves Alaskan Bushmen.
He was prospecting at 5,000 feet on Mount Adams, and that was where he was tracking, Arnold was tracking them flying from Mount Rainier to Mount Adams. When he said that he saw the craft fly over his head and disappear into a cloud. And this is really interesting because his compass needle that he had started going crazy, going back and forth and spinning. So that's also our first modern record of UFO craft interfering with man-made instruments. And what's cool about this is even though it's a shared mutual sighting, Project Blue Book that Alan Hynek worked on, and we'll eventually need to do a story about him as well, According to the Project Blue Book, Kenneth Arnold's sighting is classified as explained. It's explained phenomenon. It was a mirage. That was it.
That's surprising. I didn't know that.
Yeah. However, Fred Johnson's his sighting in the Blue Book of the same phenomenon is considered unexplainable. So that was
Wow, that you've really put the history of it together.
Yeah, it's
in a way I've never heard.
Yeah, it's great, and that's where it all began, and ever since then, we've been sort of trying to, each time we are having a UFO encounter, we're basically echoing the same experience that Kenneth Arnold had, saying, what are these ships? Who made them? Where did they come from? And it was fascinating because he never explicitly said, and this is what I really like about him as a witness, he never explicitly said, and he may have gone on to later, but during that time, he kind of took the attitude of, I know what I saw, but I don't know what it is. And he never said, it's definitely aliens. He was just saying, this is something that is new, it is something strange, and we cannot put our finger on it. And it is tangible. I know pilot. I'm a pilot. I've seen these. And he went on. He had a couple more sightings as well. And he's like, other pilots have had sightings, and he became buddies with those guys and investigators with them. And he did an interview in the 70s where he's just like, it's ridiculous that our military is not acknowledging that this is a real, tangible phenomenon that's happening.
Wow.
I guess I want to rephrase, but it's because my last episode was like, yeah, I totally believe in UFO, and I do. I believe possibly that the life that I believe exists possibly in other planets can fly around and whatever. The thing that I have trouble with is that they would get here, crash, and still be alive and do stuff to people because it takes millions of years to get here. How are they? So that's I just don't believe in that part.
You're not the only one. I mean, part of the big controversy in the scientific world is they say, the distances are just too vast, too far and in between for something to travel to our Earth, moving. If we all agree that nothing travels faster than the speed of light, I think our closest star is 14,000 light years away. It's just
is that Zeta Reticuli?
Something like that, yeah. I think, and so just the math wouldn't allow for an alien craft to travel from, let's say, Zeta Reticuli here to Earth, and so that's kind of the argument, But what we like to kind of entertain is that perhaps is what even our new science is telling us, like quantum physics, that there are things, there are particles that can travel faster than the speed of light. Not only that, perhaps time and space can be bent.
Like wormholes. I mean, stuff like that is coming out.
I think it's wormholes. I really do. I think if there's interstellar travel, it's because they are finding a way to punch
space
through
and time.
That's so exciting. There's also, though, that Hitler stuff, which I hate to bring up, but post the war.
Now for our new segment.
That Hitler stuff.
We hate to bring up Hitler.
But there is all those rumors, and maybe it's just like another part of them trying to whatever. But it was like, we took some of the German technology. Hitler was obsessed with
he was obsessed.
Those shapes, and maybe people don't want to know that our technology came from Nazis.
Project Paperclip.
That's right.
So we keep it quiet, and that's what he saw because it was after the war. I don't know.
Possibly. I mean, the thing in doing research with this, you would find guys at the time talking about how the Germans were ahead of us in rocket engineering, and not even just rocket engineering, but ahead of us in
Wernher von Braun. He built our Saturn rockets, which sent our astronauts to the moon.
They were ahead of us in aircraft as well, jet propulsion, basically. Maybe, but then if that's the case, why is Chuck Yeager breaking the sound barrier and that being big news?
And why wouldn't they just say, guys, this is just technology that we're testing out?
Right.
They would just say that.
I
believe all these pilots, and that thing you sent me that was on the Daily.
Yeah.
That
from the New York Times.
Yes.
The story about the
Tic
we
Tac
bring it
UFO?
up all the time here. Yeah.
That thing's crazy.
I do believe something. I just can't explain it, but I'm a little hesitant with I saw a guy with no, you didn't.
Well, you're in the same boat as us. I mean, we can't explain it. We're still no closer to really saying, oh, this is who's flying these things, this is where they come from, and this is how the technology works. You know what I mean? And so, that's why this whole kind of class of people who are into this stuff are so divided. I mean, you have this kind of nuts and bolts camp that says, oh, this is just hard technology, hard, nuts and bolts type craft from so and so, and then you have another camp that it's like I don't know, maybe there's some sort of a dimensional thing to this aspect. I mean, we're starting to think now, at least I know I do, that our consciousness plays a direct part in an interaction with whatever is taking place here.
Well, if we blow up what happened to Jen, let's say, with your EVP, and if you were to take it not as a literal ghost, but as some sort of psychic manifestation that was connected to a tangible and intangible emotional experience that you were going through, that there might be something happening on a greater level, global, planetary level with us as a species, and that the UFOs might be some sort of outward psychic projection that reflects back at us to make us think differently about our world, about our reality, and not question everything as just being this is, not take reality at face value, basically.
I'm down with that too.
It's weird stuff. But
You have to add psychic projections to your list of bullshit or believe
okay,
it.
cool. We'll do that.
Oh yeah,
for
that's
sure.
a good one for sure.
It's really weird, but I think this story is fascinating. It's very tame by today's standards, but I think we kind of have to acknowledge it as, this really is the birth of UFO phenomenon, and it's fascinating. And I was surprised to learn, like, oh yeah, no one had really, there was not the term flying saucer. So when they were seeing these things, today we take it for granted. We jump, like you said, straight to aliens, but they weren't doing that back then.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a coffee cup down.
Oh my god! Hang on. Keep talking.
We just
I have
psychically projected.
I have a tide.
That couch is such a piece of shit. Don't worry about it.
I hate stains. Go on. Keep
Anyway, it's a cool story.
Well, and the lexicon has kind of that Kenneth Arnold kicked off the we're watching Jen as she pulls out a Tide thing.
You are unbelievably prepared.
She's on it.
Yeah.
Just anything that may happen. She just busts out this bag that has she's like camping here. It's amazing.
It's her own personal UFO.
It's amazing.
I've got everything you might need.
It's an interdimensional pocket.
Who needs
She carries around
dissolvable Klonopin
Like
or
Mary
some
Poppins.
electrolytes or phone cleaners, mouthwash, nail file?
let me get a phone cleaner real quick, and but no, I was gonna say, so as far as the terminology, it was flying saucers, and that it was Kenneth Arnold's sighting that kind of kicked it off, and then after the Air Force launched Project Blue Book, it was J. Allen Hynek who really kind of coined the phrase UFO, which then became the norm, unidentified flying object. And it wasn't only until recently that really the popular nomenclature now is UAP, which is unexplained aerial phenomena. So as the lexicon kind of moves with the data coming across,
UAP is not as fun.
Yeah,
No.
I know. UFO is
UFO
still
is-
always kind of like,
It's more fun to say.
Yeah.
Well, I think what I'm really interested in doing moving forward, and not that we'll do it necessarily in chronological order, but I definitely want to start, because one of the cool things about doing this podcast is I now think I'm crossing through the threshold of like, oh, I'm interested in this stuff and I want to talk about it. Now I really, really want to start researching the history of all of this. So I want to do sort of a chronological history, starting with this of the UFO.
Oh, I love it.
And I know the next story that I want to do will be the sequel to this Kenneth Arnold one.
Well, it's like, listen, we've been doing this podcast for almost a year, and isn't it funny how we've avoided the biggest UFO case in history, which is the 47 crash of Roswell?
Well, because I want to do it. I want us to do it right.
I mean, yeah, it really takes its own special attention. And here's the thing about that whole crash is that kind of splits off onto a timeline where you really get into, and there's a lot of, you get into like recovered crash, recovered bodies, reversed technology, and then it really kind of goes down to a level of government involvement and insider information, and you really I mean, if you're interested in this stuff, it's it's a path you have to travel.
That's where
and
we
it
said we avoid conspiracies, but that's when the real conspiracy
that's the ultimate
starts.
one, and it leads to high office. It leads to presidents. It leads to governments, and and it leads to a lot of serious questions. I mean, we always like to. I don't want to say toy around, but we like to explore these kind of one-off incidences of high strangeness where a guy's mining and boom, a craft lands and a couple beings show up and show him some cool toys and then take off. That seems to be like a one-off story. You know what I mean? But what I think what Mike's talking about is there really is a plotted timeline to this. There's a through line to this. To these events leading up to leading up to Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy.
Okay.
Well, and I know we're breaking form here and we haven't really done what the hell was that, but we've kind of talked about it. This all started because I was trying to crack have you heard of and Jen, I want to bring this up now because you're sitting here, and I don't know the next time we'll have you back. But have you read the Reagan transcripts from Camp David, where William Casey and a person known as the caretaker were supposedly briefing him on the existence of extraterrestrial beings in the Roswell crash?
Yeah.
Have you read that?
No.
This is a crazy document that I need to do more research on now. People obviously, it was supposedly a leaked document. It's a transcript of Reagan to unnamed assistants, William Casey, who's like his national security advisor, I think. I might be wrong about that. And an unnamed person known as the caretaker. And they're sitting around Camp David. That's like 81 or 82. And they're basically telling him that extraterrestrials exist, that they know of five.
They've cataloged races,
5 different races, that the Roswell crash did in fact happen, and that and there was another crash nearby due to an electrical storm. And that out of those 2 crashes, they recovered 5 bodies and 1 living entity that they called an EBEN.
EBE, extraterrestrial biological entity.
And they nicknamed him Eben or Noah, and he died eventually. But out of that, Eisenhower started a program called MJ-12, and it was a secret program in the government to study, track, and catalog the existence of extraterrestrial races. And that's sort of where in Close Encounters, at the end of Close Encounters, when
hard not to go down the
I know, it's
the
crazy.
hole,
How has someone not Trump of all people, you think he just blurted out?
I know. Well, the whole
Unless
thing,
they don't tell him.
I don't think they're telling him. But but it's fascinating because if this transcript is fictitious, it's done its research and it's written really well. Like you can hear Ronald Reagan.
Can you send it to me? Because
I will.
going to Vegas with my parents next week, and this is something my dad and I can stay up late and talk about.
It's crazy.
At the slot machine.
You can find. And there's so much stuff. Basically, what I'm saying, we haven't even scratched the tip of the iceberg on this podcast yet.
Alien Greys, I like those ones.
That'd be a
They're my
great
favorite.
staged reading.
I know.
That would be.
I want to bring it in and do it on the podcast because Bryce, as you just heard, does it
It's an
great.
amazing.
He's
That's what I'm
really
thinking.
good, Reagan.
I'm
Thanks.
Yeah.
We'll do a radio.
A young Ronald Reagan look.
You know
well, I
what,
appreciate
Jen?
it.
We'll invite you back, and we'll do a whole recording of the transcript that people can listen to. Well, how about that when the time comes?
Can
We'll
I
do
be
it.
one of the characters?
Yes.
You
Yes,
did list
absolutely.
actor as one of my credits.
Yes. Actor.
Actor?
All right. Well, before we go, Jen, you're going to stick around
Answer questions.
and to read some emails,
Oh,
and that'll
wait.
be on next week's episode.
Can I say, as the godmother of the podcast,
Yes.
if we're talking about like good energy and all that,
Yeah.
2016, I got dumped like basically the day after Christmas. It was horrible. I had a year of like, I wrote a pilot about it
My book.
that got picked up.
Come get my book.
No, I mean, I wrote a pilot about it that didn't get picked up, but it got in the trades. Like Jen Kirkman sold a show about she got dumped on Christmas, blah, blah, blah. And someone saw that and they worked at Amazon and they were like, oh, Jen should host like a little Amazon special podcast about surviving the holidays. from her own, so they had me interview a bunch of people about different aspects of the holidays. And so 2017, a year later, I did that podcast, and they were trying to set me up with a studio to do it in, and they found me one downtown. And I said, I'm not going downtown, and I'm not asking my famous guests to come fucking downtown. Like, hey, Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth want to drive downtown? No, she doesn't. And so I said, it's got to be near me. And they're like, well, there's nothing really in that area. I'm like, I don't care. Like, find it. And they found Riley. And
incredible.
Then I came here, and then Michael came in, and I interviewed him about the holidays. And then they started bonding, and he was like, hey, I'm looking for a podcast that has this kind of clubhouse feel, and would you produce? And so now that's how they met, and it all started because of my heartbreak. So good things.
That's incredible.
And then here we all are.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
God bless you for that.
I'm so happy you were done.
I mean, because you put the band together. You put the band together.
And I'm wearing a necklace that says blessed. I got for $20 just in case there's demons.
What's so funny too is like after a few shows, we did like the first couple here in Riley's studio. And then I think Riley approached us like maybe on the third one. He's like, hey, so I'm kind of into this stuff too. Can we keep doing this? And we're like, oh, thank you. Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, that's so cute.
I know. We're like, he's like, this can kind of be home base if you guys are down for that. And we're like, oh, fuck yeah, dude.
Oh my God, I'm legit
so,
gonna cry.
Yeah, we totally, we boy bonded there.
We're very happy. So before we go, anything you want to plug?
Oh, I'm doing some shows like in America if people want to come see me.
Yeah, this will drop tomorrow, Wednesday, September 26th.
Come see me. I've got all new material for everybody. I'm going to be all over California and Vermont and Brooklyn and JenKirkman.com. You can click tour dates, go to my website, and you'll see everything you need to know about me there.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Riley, anything?
Nova, the official pup scout of the Collectors Club, has an Instagram now.
Oh, nice.
He's, at Wolf King of LA.
Sweet.
Awesome. So you can follow Nova now.
He's a sweet boy.
Sweet.
Bryce.
Let's see. I'll be coming up on the Good Doctor soon. I'm not sure the date, so I'll shout that out later on. But as Mike said, we're about to read some emails with Jen, who's going to stick around, some listener emails. And you know what? Going through those and kind of coalescing them, I was given like this wonderful sense of like community that we've seemed to have created. And I just want to say I really appreciate all the people who have written in and shared your stories with us. It's so cool to kind of like see those and to know that like, you guys are appreciating the show and responding in kind. So
that's great. Yeah.
Much thanks.
BigfootCollectorsClub at gmail.com. Please write in with your stories. The second issue of my comic book adventure van is in comic shops today as you're listening to this. If your comic shop didn't order it, and they probably didn't if you didn't tell them to, you can get it on the Comixology app on your favorite reading tablet. Okay, guys, this has been a long episode. We love you. We love Jen. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll be back next week with more Jen Kirkman and your listener files. Bye-bye.